Self-sponsorship for skilled worker visas. Now this is a topic that one sees a lot of interest in, particularly given the whole scenario with a skilled worker visa. And it's of particular interest to individuals who might be looking at working in their own businesses. Now, what could be the instance of somebody who is into a self-sponsored route from a work perspective? For instance, a barrister is somebody who is regulated by the regulating bodies in the UK, but they are self-employed in their own businesses. A dentist, for example, running a private practice, is also someone who is employed in his or her own business. When we look at any kind of a business criteria that involves an individual to be involved in the running of the day-to-day activities of their business, it can get into the territory of self-employment and, from a UK's perspective, the self-sponsorship from a skilled worker perspective. So when an individual is applying for a skilled worker visa for themselves, it's very important to note that they need to have a job offer from a UK employer. This job offer is known as a certificate of sponsorship. Now, when a company in the UK assigns a certificate of sponsorship, they cannot assign a certificate to the individual who is authorizing the COS, cannot be the same person who is benefiting from the COS as well, unless you are on the expansion worker route. And we'll talk about that in another video that you will see the link to in the description box. Now, when we come back again to the topic of self-sponsorship, it's important to understand the individuals or the different roles involved in the visa process. A company which is granting a certificate of sponsorship will often have an authorizing officer. An authorizing officer is somebody who signs off on an application to recruit a particular employee. Now, the UK regulations are very clear in terms of the conflict of an interest. An authorizing officer cannot look at authorizing a certificate of sponsorship for themselves, for their immediate family members, which could be a spouse, siblings, their parents, uncles, in-laws even. So there has to be a clear demarcation to say that the vacancy for which a person is being hired is a genuine vacancy. And this is again laid out in the norms for the skilled worker as well. And it is in this instance that the entry clearance officer looks at ascertaining whether this is a genuine vacancy. It comes around to say that the business has not created this vacancy to meet the needs of immigration, but there is a requirement for this particular individual. And this is where the role of an authorizing officer comes into the picture. And when you're evaluating an application, the entry clearance officer will look at seeing whether there's a conflict of interest or not. So if the business has created a genuine vacancy and has a specific requirement for the individual, then the individual could be a person of significant control in the business and they would be eligible to apply for a skilled worker visa. And this is in contrast to the earlier rules before Brexit, where the skilled worker visa or the Tier 2 General had specific requirements where the applicants could not own more than 10% of the business if the business was sponsoring them to the UK. However, the rules post-Brexit do not make a specific mention of the criteria around the ownership. So, as long as the business is able to satisfy the entry clearance officer, present a credible case for the applicant to join, then the applicant could, in instance, have significant control in the business and in certain respects be considered that they are being self-sponsored under the skilled worker route. If you have any specific questions around the entry clearance for the skilled worker visa, or if you are sponsoring a worker to the UK, you could look at visiting the Home Office website to get information about the application, or you could speak to a regulated immigration advisor. If you have any specific queries, you can drop the same in the comments box below. And if you want us to record any video or provide additional information on any specific instances around the skilled worker route or the sponsor license, we would love to hear from you. Thank you for watching. I'll see you next time.